During this waiting time, my father had remained characteristically closed-mouthed about my future in the Marine Corps. I, of course, knew that he was immensely proud of me for having chosen to follow his example, but a tacit understanding between us made words unnecessary. I felt an urgent and compelling need to prove myself worthy of his name, and he, in the twilight of his military career that had spanned almost 40 years, wished that he could go in my stead. As I said my goodbyes and prepared to leave for Quantico, he kissed me squarely on the lips and held me tightly in his arms. I reported to officer candidate school as late in the day as was acceptable. I overheard two large sergeants conversing animatedly about who among this miserable collection of pukes could possibly be Chesty Puller's son, and I wondered if I had taken on more than I could handle. So they got a person that's in charge of it, running the basic training here, OCS, named Captain Gretter. The next morning, Captain Gretter began interviewing each candidate in the platoon in his office adjacent to our squad bay. Candidate Puller, he began, you will receive no preferential treatment while here because of your relationship to your father. If anything, I consider your presence in my platoon to be an irritant rather than an honor because it will require additional effort on my part and because every swinging dick in this green machine is going to be eyeballing you. I am personally going to take it upon myself to see that you meet the qualifications of an officer in spades. Do I make myself clear? So, not getting any love from Captain Gretter. And OCS, here we go. Once the routine of OCS became familiar and we learned what was expected, it became more tolerable. Each day started before sunup with 5 minutes of calisthenics, followed by morning formation, chow in the mess hall, an endless series of classes, both indoors and outdoors. There was a considerable time spent in physical conditioning and in drilling on the parade ground. But the real goal of Officer Candidate School was testing of our physical, mental, and psychological limits rather than grounding in military fundamentals. Check. And speaking of physical limitations, so at one point they're doing a forced road march into a hump, and Lou Puller falls back. And here we go. They get separated from the people that kept up. And he says, I felt an almost visceral humiliation and resolved never to straggle on another march. Captain Gretter did not deign to so much as look at us, no doubt considering it a personal insult that we had disgraced his platoon, and I would have preferred by far the profane tirades that were his usual stock in trade. Although our training schedule made no allowance for Thanksgiving, that autumn we were given liberty a couple of weeks later, Saturday at noon until Sunday night. My sister's roommate, Toddy, picked me up in the parking lot outside the barracks. So he's meeting this woman, and that's his girl. You're going to find out. They go out to a movie. They go see Bonnie and Clyde. And isn't it weird? Like, you know the movie Bonnie and Clyde, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't it? Like, I was thinking about the movie Bonnie and Clyde. And I'm just thinking about the time frame that it came out. And it's weird when you think of the movie and you think of everything that's going on when that movie came out. Like, this was happening when that movie. It doesn't seem that long ago, and then it does seem a long time ago, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's funny. I think about that all the time. Like, when they say dates, I remember what I was doing on that date. Meanwhile, this was going on, whatever it is.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of thinking during that. As I went to sleep on the couch in the apartment living room that night, I sensed that the softness of this incredible woman was going to give me the strength to make it through the rest of Officer Candidate School. I kissed her goodbye on Sunday evening in the same parking lot where she had received me only a day earlier, and woefully realized that I was falling in love at a time when emotional independence might well be the more prudent course. Now they go back. He's back at OCS. Staff Sergeant Brown taught us to try and divorce our minds from the pain in our bodies while navigating the hill trail by the simple expedient of sucking lifesavers and imagining ourselves in a more pleasant situation. And he kind of takes that. I never again allowed Gretter, Brown, or Sorg to read the exhaustion on my face. By the end of OCS, I had developed a hardness and a confidence of which I had not thought myself capable. On the last march prior to commissioning, I practically ran from start to finish, and my defiant gaze at Captain Gretter at its completion was, of course, exactly the reaction he'd been trying to elicit from me for 10 weeks. I thought that was very cool. He's all thinking like, yeah, I'm showing you. He's like, no, actually, you're doing exactly what I wanted you to do. So, that was their last forced march. They're spending their last night. As we slumbered off to our bunks for the last wake up at OCS, I overheard one drunken staff sergeant from another platoon tell Brown that 75% of us who chose the infantry would be dead or wounded within 6 months of arriving in Vietnam. But even his somber words could not dull my elation.